ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. So welcome back to our usual session after the festivities of Diwali. I take this opportunity to wish you a wonderful new year and all the best in your life in the coming months and years. So let's go back to our topic on unraveling the veil of Maya. There was a very renowned saint who used to wander around delivering his talks to various villages and towns. It was long time back in Puranic ages. He went to one village which had a population of about 5,000 people that time. He delivered his talk and people were very much impressed and they all felt that they all want to become devotee of the Almighty. They want to meet the Almighty and get out of this veil of Maya. So the saint was very much impressed by their resolution, by their resolve. And he said, okay, let me approach the Almighty, because he had a direct, contact with the Almighty. So he said, let me talk to the Almighty and we will arrange everything accordingly. So he spoke to the Almighty and Almighty said, it's a great news. But what I can do is one thing, that I will travel millions of kilometers and these people will need to travel about 5-6 kilometers from their village where we can meet. And once they reach there, I'll take care of them. All of them will have, they will merge into my entity and achieve nirvana. So the saint was very happy. He went back to the village and announced this to all the people that this is what has been agreed to by the Almighty. So we will start this journey of 5 kilometers on the coming Monday. So they started that journey on Monday. Almost everybody came with him to begin with. But some of them were talking on the way and they did not believe that whether this, this saint is good enough to take us to the Almighty. They started disbelieving while on the way. After a little while, they said, this man doesn't look whether he can really take us to the Almighty. So some of them stayed back. They retreated from the journey. The remaining 75% went ahead. They found after about 1 kilometer a great spread of food, all varieties of food was spread there. And some of them got tempted. They started eating all those great dishes which they never saw in their life. They were completely engrossed. So some of them stayed back there, about 25%. So remaining 50% moved ahead. Then they moved another kilometer and they found that there was a beautiful dressage all around, all covered with diamonds and pearls and, having many precious stones embedded into those dresses. So a lot of people just got busy there, they engaged and they started taking those dresses. About 25% stayed back. So remaining 25% moved further. And when they moved further, they found a group of beautiful ladies, very well dressed, very attractive. So many of them, got attracted there and they stayed back there. And finally, only one person accompanied the saint and he covered the 5-kilometer distance and reached the Almighty. The Almighty took him in his shelter and gave him, the ultimate bliss of life. And then the saint was very apologetic. He told the Almighty that I thought everybody would come, but only one person came. So Almighty told him that, listen, this is what happens. This is the veil of Maya. They were all completely devastated, enchanted, hypnotized by the Maya on the way. So this is one explanation of Maya, that how things hypnotize us, how things enchant us, how we are spellbound by these things. We talked about the four pillars of Maya. Let me repeat them once again. The one pillar is the wealth, the prosperity, which keeps us engaged all the time. The second pillar is the sexual life that keeps engaged all the time, everybody. Many things we do with the focus on the sexual, desire. Then we have power structure, the state power, where you acquire a position of power. That keeps you engaged. A lot of people, try to become ministers and prime ministers and presidents. That keeps you engaged. You see how big the political parties are, how many workers they have, how many supporters they have. They're all desired by they are all enchanted by the desire of power. And then we have the social status and prestige. So these four pillars of Maya, as we discussed, they keep us engaged in this world. And this example which I gave you is a very good example how we remain engaged. It is similar to the example of Rishi Narad, Dev Rishi Narad, who was given a lesson by Lord Krishna himself in the veil of Maya. So this is how the veil of Maya works in practical life. Now let us see what is the real, fundamental cause of its working. Now these things have been very in detail have been explained in various scriptures. I'll take three verses, two from Bhagavad Gita and one from Svetasvatara Upanishad, to explain how this actually works on the ground. The two verses of Bhagavad Gita are in chapter 3rd, 27 and 28. The verses read like this. Prakriti kriyamani nu gune karmani sarvasha अहंकार विमूढ़ात्मा करता है महित मन्यते तत्वविदु महाभागो गुण कर्म विभागयो गुणा कर्मेषु वर्तन्ति इति मत्वा न सज्जते. It basically means that the entire nature is governed by the three gunas of nature, that is Sat, Raj and Tam. It is governed by that. But because of ahankar, because of ego, people believe that he is doing the things. Prakriti keeps acting on its own. The second verse says, Guna gunesu vartante, that is, gun hi gunon mein act kar rahe hain. The whole thing is acting because of the reciprocal interaction of these three gunas, Sat, Raj and Tam. They act in us, they act in the nature, and because of that the whole nature keeps moving in certain directions. Now we, because of our ego, presume that we are the doer. We are making it happen. When our family life goes on, we presume that I am the bread and butter earner. I am taking care of the family. The family is running because of me. When you go out to an office, you feel that office is running because of me, because I am the great mind behind this entire office. When you become a minister, you feel that the entire government apparatus works because of me, because I am the great mind and I am the one who is taking all the important decisions and putting them on the ground. So this feeling of I am doing is the biggest culprit in this process, and that makes us engaged into these what you call acts of nature. These are acts of nature. They happen on their own. They happen because of the permutation, combination, and interaction of these three gunas. But we presume that we are doing it. So this is what these two verses from Bhagavad Gita explain, and that is where the veil of Maya actually starts on us. It starts with ego. It starts that I am the doer. As soon as I leave this, uh, you know, this feeling that I am the doer, things will settle down, things will go in a very different direction. Then you will consider it as a merely what you call lila. That is, everything is happening, and I am just a watcher. I am just watching from outside. That's what happens. Now, the Svetasvatar Upanishad, uh, it is the what you call fourth chapter and 10th verse. It reads like this: Mayam tu prakatim vidyan maidvanti tu maheswaram tasya vayam bhutestu vyaptam sarvamidam jagat. Now this tells us that this nature which is surrounding us, prakriti which is surrounding us, that is should be understood as Maya. And the person who is controlling, or the power that is controlling this nature, should be understood as Maheshwara, that is Paramatma. So the Maheshwar, the Paramatma, acts through this nature. The nature keeps us enchanted, and we remain completely engaged into this nature. That is how it works. So this is more or less the similar version as we discussed in Bhagavad Gita, similar version in Svetasvatar Upanishad. Also there is a verse in Kathopanishad which says similar thing. So the basic function of Maya is governed by the nature, the forces of nature. And those are the five forces we discussed in the beginning. That is Akash, Vayu, Agni, Jal, and Prithvi. These five basic elements of nature, they interact with each other. They interact with the three gunas, that is Sat, Raj, and Tam. And these eight things, the five, the physical elements, and the three subtle elements, the Sat, Raj, and Tam are subtle elements. These eight elements interacting create all the veil of Maya for us, and that is how we keep moving. Now, let us see how it works in practical life. Now, we look, for example, for wealth. A person wants to earn more and more wealth. He thinks that wealth will give him security, happiness, and the bliss, whatever he wants. In fact, there are a lot of prayers during the time of Deepavali. People justify wealth, saying that without wealth you can't do yajna, you can't do dharma, you can't do karma. Therefore, wealth is essential because we are worshipping goddess Lakshmi. In fact, if you see the Aarti of goddess Lakshmi, it says precisely the same thing, that without you I cannot perform yajna, I cannot perform karma, I cannot do any dan, I can do nothing. So this is a justification for Maya. But I'm not saying Maya is, I'm not saying wealth is not important. Wealth is important in the sense that you have to meet the requirements of your body, basic needs of the requirement of body. To that extent, wealth is important. But beyond that, if you get completely indulged into wealth acquisition, then that becomes veil of Maya, and that keeps you engaged. Now you keep pursuing earning of wealth, you open industries and you do stock markets, or whatever activity you undertake to earn Maya. Those activities will keep you completely engrossed and engaged. I have seen people, businessmen, they do not think anything beyond their business. They do not think anything beyond earning more money. Their whole thinking. Wherever they go, whatever they do is governed by that. So that is the veil of Maya which goes, which actually covers the entire personality of an individual. You go to a person who is engaged in the pursuit of power. His entire personality is engaged with that pursuit. He wants to become more and more powerful. He wants to see how to win election, how to, trick these people, how to get support from here, how to get support from there, how to impress the prime minister so that I can become a cabinet minister, things like that. The whole thinking is completely dominated by that process. I've seen in bureaucracy, where I have been a part of it. There are people who are completely engrossed in their path of so-called career. That okay, I'll get this posting, I'll get this promotion, and they try to manipulate those postings and promotions. Their whole exercise day and night is designed by that. Even their work is designed by that. So this is what is veil of Maya. It doesn't allow you to think beyond that. The larger perspective of life is completely lost and destroyed in this veil of Maya. So what Krishna has said in many other places, that you have to live a normal life. In that life, you have to earn a reasonable amount of wealth to keep yourself up. You have to eat, food in what you call moderation. You have to sleep in moderation. You have to earn wealth in moderation. But when you are completely inundated by the force of wealth or power or prestige or sex, then you are under the spell of Maya. And that is where we have to be careful. We have to keep analyzing ourselves time and again that I'm not getting completely engrossed into that process. It should be confined to your basic needs of life, which you have to fulfill because you have a body which has certain needs, that those needs have to be fulfilled, because body is the vehicle of your journey in this world. And in order to perform any journey, the example of chariot which has come in Kathopanishad, we have discussed that example, that this body is like a chariot. It carries us in this journey of life, and therefore we have to keep this chariot in reasonably good shape so that we can perform the journey. Exactly same way we have to carry this body, keep this body in good shape so that we can perform this journey of life. And for that we have to meet the basic requirements of the body, and to that extent it is fine. But when it goes beyond that, then it becomes Maya ka avran. It becomes a veil of Maya. So this is what we have to understand. We need not get completely spellbound and dominated by these forces of Maya, which we discussed earlier. Now, how do we understand these forces? How do we, try to detach ourselves one by one? Now, for that, we need to understand three Sanskrit, or rather six Sanskrit words, which I will talk. One is called Vrati, Pravarti, Nivrati. Vrati is a sort of tendency to do certain things. That is Vrati. Like for example, the water drops fall during the rainy season, and it makes a certain way on the sand, and then the certain way keeps developing over time when the rain keeps falling, and it becomes a sort of nala, or it becomes a river bed. So that is a vrati. The slowly vrati becomes deep and deep and deep and deeper. So the vrati can be controlled in the beginning, but once it starts getting deeper and deeper, it becomes more and more difficult to control. Like a smoker can control his smoking habit in the beginning, but when it becomes deeper and deeper and deeper, it becomes extremely difficult for him to control. Then he requires a new, uh, focus altogether to change that tendency. So this is called vrati. Now pravarti, we develop pravarti. Pravarti is a regular flow of vrati in the same direction. A person who has vrati towards wealth, if he regularly keeps thinking in that direction, it becomes pravarti. That इसकी प्रवृत्ति हो गई है तो ये तो ऐसे ही करेगा. That's what we say in normal life. कि ये तो some people when they come home and they talk, they all the time keep talking about bad of others. Then you say, why are you doing this? अरे इस आदमी की तो ये प्रवृत्ति हो गई, ऐसे ही करता है. This is what we say. So pravarti means a habit which has developed over time and had become deep and deep. It goes into your personality very deep. Then it becomes very difficult to get out of it. But there are ways to get out of it. So that is called pravarti. Then we have nivrati. If you are able to get out of it and look inwards, then you are able to get what you call get away from that pravarti. And that becomes your nivrati. Now pravarti, how it can become nivrati? I think in business we have a very common phrase these days called tipping point. Tipping point is very important when you talk to the people in business administration and economics and innovation. They say that once you reach the tipping point, then the transformation takes place and entirely new horizons come into being. And that is what happens. When your pravarti reaches at the top, and at that tipping point, at that point you reach a point where you are completely transformed because you feel that this pravarti has not led you where you wanted to go. And then it transforms you into a completely new person. And that is how some people, when they are, you might have seen some great criminals, they become spiritual because they have reached the pinnacle of the crimes. They have done all the crimes possible in the life, and they found that they could not actually attain the happiness they wanted to achieve, and therefore they transform. That is the tipping point for them, and then they become different person. Similarly, you will find people who are engaged in what you call search for power, search for wealth. They becoming at the end of their life getting transformed and becoming philanthropist. You can have many examples. Even our Ambanis are now becoming more philanthropist. Tatas, in their end of their life, they become philanthropist. You see globally, a lot of people who have earned great wealth, they at the end of their life, they reach that tipping point, and then they start a totally, a new direction of life, and that is called nivrati. So you become nivrat from the pravarti. That is possible once you reach the tipping point, or some other transformation happens inside yourself. So these three words we have to remember very carefully, that we should not start the vrati first of all. If it starts, it should not get or transformed into pravarti. Pravarti is a habitual thing which we should avoid, to the extent possible. And if it transforms into pravarti, then you have to reach the tipping point and go down to nivrati. That is how these three words explain you how to get out of Maya. Now, the other three words are asakt, virakt, and anasakt. Asakt, virakt, anasakt. They are also meaning in a similar way. Asakt, there's a word, another word called in Sanskrit called limpyanti. Or limpyanti is a very profound word. It's not properly understood. It is said that आकाश आपको लिपायमान नहीं करता है. When you move into the space, ये आपको महसूस भी नहीं होता कि आप आकाश के अंदर मूव कर रहे हैं. आप पानी में मूव करते हैं, देन पानी आपको लिपायमान कर लेता है, आपके चारों तरफ पानी बन जाता है. आप गीले हो जाते हैं, आपके कपड़े गीले हो जाते हैं, वो लिपायमान हो जाता है। आप मिट्टी में जाते हैं, मिट्टी भी आपको लिपायमान कर देती है। आपके कपड़े जो है गंदे हो जाते हैं, आपकी बॉडी के ऊपर वेट आ जाता है मिट्टी का, आप लिपायमान हो जाते हैं। अग्नि में भी जाते हैं तो आप लिपायमान हो जाते हैं। अग्नि आपको जला देती है, आपको बॉडी को हर्ट कर देती है, लिपा। वायु में भी जाते हैं तो आप लिपायमान होते हैं कुछ हद तक, कम होते हैं लेकिन कुछ हद तक होते हैं। वायु का प्रवाह आपको महसूस होता है, आपको टच, यू फील द टच ऑफ वायु देयर। So all these four elements of nature, they have lipayaman. They have the tendency to attach themselves to you. But Akash does not have that. When you move into Akash, it's completely, detached. It's not limpanthy into your body or in your clothes or anything. It doesn't affect you. That is how the explanation of limpanthy is. So asakti basically is the thing when you get the impact of lipayaman, जिससे आपके ऊपर प्रभाव पड़ता है, the thing which impact you directly, and then you become more and more engrossed into that. That is called asakti. जैसे जो आदमी वेल्थ इकट्ठा कर रहा है और वो उसमें आसक्त होता है, इसका मतलब ही विल कीप aspiring to have more and more wealth without realizing the meaning what it means, without completely forgetting the what you call the overall mission of life. He is completely bypassing that mission and he gets only focused on the wealth. So that is called asakti. It's a pravarti which is deep enough, which is able to make you completely asakti. That is what asakti is. Now, virakti is means you get out of it. It's something like nivrati, that you are able to get out of it, but it's the other side of the horizon. There are two scales of of a foot. One scale is asakti, another scale is pravarti. So the another scale is virakti. Now virakti also means asakti in some ways. It's only the opposite direction. What you need to go beyond the two. You need to go beyond asakti and virakti, and that third element is called anasakt. In Jain philosophy, it has also been described as vitrag, that आप राग से आगे चले गए. That is what Mahavir has stated in his speeches, that rag means you are attached to something. Rag is basically asakti, but rag से विराग होना, वैराग्य जो जिसको कहते हैं, that is also asakti in the other direction, that you are getting out of it. Like you were earning wealth earlier, now you have become philanthropist. So on one hand you are asakt in earning, on the other hand you have become virakt and you are giving your wealth, but again wealth comes into the place. Wealth is still material in both the cases. How do we get out of the wealth process? That is called anasakt or vitrag. You go beyond that. You don't care whether it comes to you or not come to you. If it comes, you are happy. It doesn't come, you are happy. You do not care what happens. That is where you attach no importance to the wealth. The wealth becomes completely immaterial in your thinking process. That is where you reach anasakt. That is where you reach the state of vitrag. That is where you reach the state of observer. That is where we need to reach. So people who are saying that मैंने जीवन में बहुत कमा लिया, अब तो मैं उसको दान दे रहा हूं, even those people are attached to the wealth. On the one hand, they were in the beginning they were attached to earning, now they are attached to giving, but both are attachments. And that is the difference between anasakt, Asakt and Virakt. And this word has come, Anasakt has come in Bhagavad Gita also. And that is what Krishna has explained. Anasakt means you have to go beyond the entire spectrum of wealth, or entire spectrum of sexual desire, or entire spectrum of prestige and power in the life. Then you are anasakt. So that stage has to come slowly and slowly. It comes slowly and slowly, but it comes. And that state, in that state, you do not, the wealth does not bother you, whether you are poor, whether you are rich, whether you donate or whether you don't donate. All those things become irrelevant from your, for your life. You are completely, what you call, detaching yourself from that process. And that is called anasakt. So we have to understand these words. And the best thing is not to allow a vrati to become pravarti if it is not in the right direction. A vrati in the direction of the surrender to Almighty is good vrati. Then you do away with your ego. But a vrati towards attachment to the world is not a good vrati. And that is where we have to detach to, keep away the veil of Maya. Now, there is, very profound, which is called Mahavakya in Upanishads. It's called Neti Neti. Neti Neti means not this, not that, not this, not that. Now, this gives us a wonderful, what you call, elimination process. We eliminate things that, okay, this is good, this is not good. So we say, Neti, no, this is not good. Neti, no, that is not good. This is how we have to eliminate the veils of Maya in our life. Now, if you are eliminating one by one, okay, wealth eliminated, sexual desire eliminated, prestige eliminated, power eliminated, then what else? The foundation of all that is ego. All these four pillars, they emanate from ego. I am the doer. That is where the problem is. And the final neti neti has to go to ego. That why this happened, why I became angry, why I have a tendency to acquire wealth, why I have tendency to, because I am thinking that I am the doer. We are not thinking that the nature is acting or गुण ही गुणों में वर्तते हैं. वो think that thinking is not there. I think that thinking has to come. That प्रकृति के जो गुण हैं वो आपस में एक दूसरे से interact करते हैं. The 5 elements of nature and the 3 gunas, they interact, and the whole universe runs on that basis. I am not the doer. Now, how does a diamond form in the belly of the earth? How? It is all the nature. The elements of nature, whether it is space or fire and water and, air, press, earth, all that, a combination, a particular period of time, that combination creates time. That's it, basically. All the minerals are created in that process. We don't create anything, all created by nature through this action. Similarly, we behave how we behave, good or bad, because we have these 3 tendencies in us. Everybody has those, good, the Sat, Raj and Tam, and our behavior is governed by that. Some people are, caring to the others because they have prominence of Sat. Some people don't care for others because they have less of Satguna. Some people have passion to do things. They want to, whether it's a painter or writer or businessman, their passion that comes from Rajogun, and the Rajogun drive them further and further down to do that thing. And he's doing because of the Rajogun, and he thinks I'm doing it. I'm the doer. I'm the one who has achieved all this. No, it is the Rajogun which is driving him. And some people, keep lying on the bed. They don't care and they don't do much in life. Their parents keep telling me, "Kabhi to utھ ke kaam karo." So that kind of thing, they are dominated by tamogun. They have the tendency, what you call pramad, alasya. These are the two major tendencies of tamogun. So their life is dominated by pramad and alasya. And they are not the doer. This is happening because these forces operating in our body, they were embedded in our body at the time of birth. And those forces are actually operating in our body to make us behave in a particular fashion. Once we can understand that and we become observer, because you can see these tendencies. I have done it in my own personal life. Why I became angry. Then I analyze it afterwards. Oh, I became angry because this particular event hurt my ego. Somebody told me certain words which I could not tolerate, and that's why I became angry. Now that is because of my ego. My ego did not allow me to be cool and calm despite what the other guy said, and that is where the problem arises. So the final attack of Neti Neti has to go down to ego. We have to first remove the four pillars: the wealth, the sexual desire, the power, and the prestige. And then we come down to the real cause, that is the ego. Ahem. We have to attack that. And once we are able to attack that, I think slowly, slowly we can get out of the well of Maya. We become observer. We take things as they happen. We presume that the nature is functioning through its own interaction. Things are happening in the samasti. And then you would remember the Bhagavad Gita's very famous verse, कर्मण्यवादी कारस्ते माँ फलेषु कदाचन, कि आपको कर्म करने का अधिकार है, फल आप डिसाइड नहीं कर सकते, because फल is decided by the samasti. The outcome is decided by the entire universe. For example, you put a seed in the earth, you put a wheat seed. Now, as soon as you put that seed in the earth, the whole universe starts acting. How? The seed gets sunlight, the air comes and helps it, the water comes and helps it, the earth provides the thing, all the forces come, they start helping the seed and seed grows. You think the seed grows on its own? No, it doesn't. It is the forces of nature that make it grow. Exactly same way it happens with us. The forces of nature act on our three gunas, the sattva and tam. Those are the gunas on which the forces of nature act. And then we start behaving. We start opening up our so-called extrovert personality and introvert personality. So this is how we have to think, that how did I behave? Why did I behave in a particular fashion? Why did I do this? And what is the cause of it? The cause of it could be because I am losing wealth, and that is. But why I am worried about wealth? Because I have the ego and I want to show to the world that I am a wealthy person. Now this is the, so we have to go deeper, little bit deeper into this cause, and then we will find out that ego is actually the main culprit of the Maya, which brings the Maya around us and keeps us completely in the darkness of Maya. Now, there's another thing which I would like to mention here. In this universe, I think this was mentioned in the first talk, everything is constantly undergoing change. Everything. The science has also proved that the atoms are changing every second. Our bodies are changing. Our even a stone is changing every millisecond. The clouds are forming differently. The water bodies are changing. Everything is constantly changing. There is nothing without change. That is why it is called Jagat, that it has a gati constantly all the time, gati, gati, gati. And that's why, and that despite that change, we feel it is stable. We feel the world is the same. We get that impression, which is the veil of Maya, which gives us that impression. Ourselves, our body has undergone a complete change since our birth and since we were a student. Still, we feel that I am so. So, there's one cause is the Maya. The other real cause is that you remain the same. The body changes. So, there's a distinction in the two. Outwardly, we see this change because the change is actually happening, but we do not feel that change and we consider it as stability in the world. That the cities are in the same place and you know the people are living, we can go by road to that place, to this place. You get a feeling of stability there. That is because of Maya. It is nothing is stable. Everything has undergone change. You never step into the same river again because the river is not the same ever. It keeps changing. Same way our body is changing. But there's another reason why we feel stability is that we have this consciousness inside us, which is completely stable, which is not changing, which gives us the feeling of stability. So we have to distinguish this between the two. If we can see the stability through the consciousness, I think that is what we call we are able to overcome the veil of Maya. But if we see the stability through the mental frame, then we are still in the veil of Maya. So we have to understand these, intricacies which we face in our life because of this veil of Maya. Now, there are a few other words. This I always have been telling to everyone that Sanskrit is the most scientific language in this world. Each word has its origin in a very proper scientific way. So there are another two words here, and we use them quite often. Lok, लौकिक and अलौकिक. We call ये लोक है. हम कहते हैं तीन लोक है संसार में. That is, under the ground, that is on the ground and in the sky. Basically, that is the description of lokas. But there are various different theories. There some say 7 lokas and some say 11 lokas, and there are different ways. 3 lok, 7 lok, 11 lok. But leave that aside. The basically lok means the world in which we live. That is lok. The manifest world in which we can the world which we can feel with our sense organs. The 5 sense organs enable us to see a particular world. That is called lok. And if we behave in that fashion, in the fashion that whatever is grasped by our senses is the truth, then we are lokic. And if we can go beyond the power of sense organs, then it is alokik. Then it is beyond our senses. And there was a time when people did not believe that things cannot be felt by, that things can exist beyond senses. But today, even the modern science tells you that there's a wide world which exists, which cannot be sensed through our organs. The power of sense organs is very limited. The power of our eyes, the power of our ears, our nostrils, or our touch and our taste is very limited. There are a lot of things beyond that, and that is called alokik in Sanskrit language. So we have to explore the alokik world. The lokic world is the world of Maya. This, whatever is sensed through sense organs, is Maya. But once we transcend that world, we reach the world called Alokik, which is beyond Maya. And that world can, take away from us the feeling that I am the doer. Because that is so vast, so profound that you become minuscule there. You surrender yourself automatically. In this world of Maya, you do not surrender because you feel that you are the one, you are doing everything. You are doing for family or business or friends, and the world is running around you. You are the center of the universe. That is the feeling uh, each one of us has when we are alive. But when you start getting the feeling of alokik, the world which is beyond our sense organs, then you feel that I am nothing, absolutely nothing. So that feeling has to come. So these three category of words, prati, pravarti, nivritti, then asakt, virakt and anasakt, lokik and alokik. These are the words which have been framed in the Sanskrit language specifically to guide us from the veil of Maya to the veil to the world of freedom. Actually, freedom, moksha or nirvana is actually the real freedom. The meaning of it is real freedom. And that real freedom comes only we can detach ourselves from this veil of Maya, from the attraction of Maya, from the hypnotic power of Maya, from the spell binding power of Maya. If we can detach and go there, then we become what you call free in the real sense. That is the freedom. So I think I will finish here today. We will have one more last session on Maya to conclude everything. And any questions you have now, I'll be happy to answer them before we go for our meditation.